I'm Chris Moss, and I'm here with my other co-founder, Andre Nevis, and we, along with a third co-founder, Simon, we co-founded Zebedee. But Andre will probably get into that in more detail as part of his presentation. But I'll just kind of give a bit of background on myself. So I've been in the indie gaming space since about 2011, and I entered the Bitcoin gaming space in 2013. I was one of the first people to experiment with Bitcoin in games. So my first game was a hyper casual game on iOS that let people earn small amounts of Bitcoin when the player had to swing a monkey, and it was like a very simple game, but due to Apple restrictions, I wanted to use Bitcoin for payments, so the players could buy stuff with Bitcoin, but Apple didn't allow that at the time. So I decided to do Bitcoin kind of tips. As a player played, they would get tiny amounts of Bitcoin, and the idea being that because they earned actual value, they would play more. So that was my theory, and it worked out. My ad revenue increased because the players were playing more. So I was basically returning a little bit of that ad revenue back to the players. So that's kind of my first intro into Bitcoin and gaming. And then, well, I would say since about 2017, I experimented with a bunch of different Bitcoin games. I even experimented with somewhat controversial NFTs before they were known as NFTs in 2015-16. And basically through my kind of experience of what works, what doesn't work, and what the tech actually allows, that all kind of came together to help me form Zebedee and bring Bitcoin to gaming, I would say, in the right way, because obviously I've known a lot of the pitfalls and kind of been through them.
So kind of Chris, I think you should be able to share.
Yep, I can now. Yep, no worries.
Perfect.
Okay, so yeah, can we see that? Cool.
Yeah, it looks great.
Cool. And you can also see my feed, right? My video feed that hasn't disappeared, I think.
No, your video feed looks fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Great. Because I'm going to use that in a bit. But yeah, so welcome to Zebedee. I'm just going to kick off the introduction, the presentation, a little bit about kind of money in games, the history of it, and then my co-founder is going to take over, talk a little bit about what Zebedee actually does, the tools and products we have, and then I'm going to finish showing some use cases, showing how we actually use Bitcoin in some of our games and how it's working. So you see here, yeah, so money in games, so a 40-year relationship. So I would actually say it's quite a bit longer, and money in games has actually been happening from the beginning. And I'm just going to do a little bit of show and tell here and show this to the camera. I don't know if people know what these are, but these are called Hana Fuda. They're kind of Japanese playing cards. And why they are particularly interesting is they have a very important connection to money into the first game. So probably a lot of people watching it will know what I'm referring to. But in Edo, Japan, basically, gaming for money, like physical gaming with cards for money, was banned. So what they had to do is they had to make games that they had to make secret hidden games that people could still use to kind of play for money. So they were playing, for like obviously like coins, old Japanese coins, which I also have here. And the company that actually made these back, in over 150 years ago now, was actually this company. This is the box it came in, so you can see a Mario there, and obviously, yeah, this is Nintendo. So Nintendo actually started off as a gaming company before, well, I guess before electricity was really a thing, but before digital games were a thing. And so obviously they did physical games, card games, and then when they actually entered the digital gaming market, one of the first games they made, if we actually look at my video feed here, was obviously Super Mario Brothers. So they decided, well, games are about earning coins, that's what we've done, so let's put some coins in a game. And you can see the video here that Mario runs around, and the point is you collect these little Mario coins. So going back to the presentation, money in games has always been a big thing. And go to the next slide. Yeah, so in the digital, like the first way people could really use money in games, the only way it would work is if you had physical coins. Obviously, this is before credit cards were a thing. People would go to the arcade machine and they would insert money into an arcade machine, and they would play. You know, and then as games evolved, you know, there's the more complex economies formed. So we have in the top left Mario getting small coins, but then in the game in the top right, there's a bit, you know, this is obviously an RPG game where you're earning money in the game and you're purchasing houses, and you get rewards for completing missions, etc. And then on the right, you know, there's even things being kind of sold for money, and money's being abstracted. So this game is using gems. So, you know, where there's games, there's people who've trying to use money but tried to program it in a way, but they've never really used real money. They've had to use their own kind of virtual money that doesn't have any value or has little value. But it doesn't really kind of work in games. Adding money into games has always been a bit of a hack. So we can see here, if you put money into the game, that doesn't mean that, you know, the player gets that money, you know, or the game dev even gets that money. It's, you know, in an arcade machine, it's still, you're adding physical money, which isn't really going into the digital world. And likewise in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, if you earn $400, you're not actually earning $400. Like, you know, it's all kind of just a pretend money. Oh. So as Bill Gurley said, he said, the real issue here is that gaming is a world that thrives on credits and points, the vast majority of which don't have any real value or are locked into a controlled ecosystem. So now imagine a credit token that is just freely, it's not just freely liquid, but that might also, and he said appreciate in value, but we kind of changed that to have value and be useful. So this is kind of important. We believe at Zebedee that people put a lot of effort into games, and obviously they want to get some value outside of the entertainment value, because the game dev is basically making money from the player. So in these advanced online economies, the players should also earn money. And I know there are kind of games where the game's currency has a value, but it's kind of locked into the ecosystem. It's not free, and if you kind of exit the game, you can't really exit with the value that you've created. And a lot of game devs are kind of tempted to make their own token. You know, so a lot of games that use blockchain will do this. They'll create a token for the game, and that token is worth 0. But as the game becomes more popular, that token increases in value. And in my experience, being in this space since 2013, that's not the best thing to do, because you basically get these economies which aren't stable. As your game gets popular, your currency becomes very, very popular, and then people will sell and buy it, and traders will come in and they'll dump the currency to crash your economy. So we believe using a currency that is, you know, not created by the game dev and is actually a currency that's used out there by many different platforms and users and ecosystem, and is agnostic and is not controlled, i.e. Bitcoin, it leads to a much more stable and a better way of doing it. And plus that money, if you earn Bitcoin in the game, that Bitcoin has value in other games, whereas if you earn a game token, it won't have value outside of the game. You'd have to trade it, and it makes it complicated. So why? So yeah, you couldn't put money in the computer. I've kind of touched on this a bit before. But you know, it's not true to say that you can't use money in games. Now everybody probably has a smartphone, and you play apps, and those apps have in-app purchases, but it's kind of clunky. So as money became digital, it was possible to use it in games, but not in a way that money should be used. So for example, if I play a game with my friends, like a board game where I play poker or something like that, I can freely hand my friends a coin and they can hand it back. It's kind of free. So we want the same thing in a game. However, if we want to put money in a game, we have to use payment providers like PayPal. So here the game developer says, I'd like to send this gamer in France 10 euros or a small amount for an excellent quest they've done, and you basically have to use a bank, and the bank will say yes, that'll cost like €3 in fees, and you have to have a license to do that, and your player has to be licensed, and it's just not a real free programmable way to add it. Like programmers and game devs, they want to be able to program and manipulate money like they do any other bit of code, like they do a game token. But we also want the money to be money, not some token that we've just made. It should be something that has value and is used by the wider world, which is why we use Bitcoin at Zebedee. So yeah, another thing about adding money to a game is it's quite hard because as a game dev, you need to think about money transmitter licenses, you have to think about tax reporting, there's all these regulations which make it hard, and then the regulations change. So basically, to kind of put money into game, you kind of have to either be a bank or use a bank, and then if you use a bank, you can only work with customers of that bank. Everybody needs accounts. It's not kind of free flowing until so Bitcoin came along, and Bitcoin basically, in my view, it makes money. It does a lot of things, but one thing it does is it makes money programmable, so we can start to use it freely in games. And the good thing about Bitcoin is it is the most understood and most regulated currency or cryptocurrency out there, and this is quite important. As I said before, lots of people in my past, when they tried to use blockchain in games, they would issue their own currency, but their own token or their own currency is not going to be as legally understood or regulated as Bitcoin. So they're going to have a hard time moving it and selling it. They're going to get, well, a lot of people did get in trouble doing that, but Bitcoin is the most understood. Pretty much all major countries have laws and regulations that will allow a company to use it without having to worry about getting in trouble. And that's an important thing that my colleague Andre will talk about more. Is at Zebedee, we actually handle all the regulation and licenses for you, so the game dev doesn't have to worry about it at all. That's kind of what Zebedee handles. Yep, and the Bitcoin is basically money became programmable, so it's sending a tiny amount, sending a cent, or even less to a player halfway across the world. It's just as simple as an API call. And Bitcoin it's growing faster than the internet. It still feels like it's early days, but there's over 130 million users at the moment, and it's kind of got an exponential growth chart, and it's growing worldwide, and we're seeing more and more companies and countries accepting it. And it's no longer like when I first started in 2013, Bitcoin was a little bit unknown. Like the Apple took it off the App Store because they weren't sure, and governments and countries didn't know what to do with it. But now we see countries such as El Salvador adopting it as a legitimate currency, and legitimate companies are forming and allowing you to use Bitcoin. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, and he's going to continue the rest of the slides, and I'll come back later and talk about how we actually use it in some of our games.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I believe I need to be given the rights to share screen, but I will do that shortly. Oh. Are you able to give me the rights, Chris?
I think so. Try now.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, perfect. So let me just share this here. If I do this, just 1 second, sorry. It's a little complicated right now. Here we go. So Chris's introduction to money in games was great because it showcases what the path that money has taken in the gaming environment. What Chris mentions around Bitcoin being, turning turning money into data is really important. Right now, we are streaming this video quality, 4K HD across the world with multiple participants from anywhere. And we do all of this through the internet, so we can send data, we can send video, audio, text, messages, everything. The only thing that you can't send across the internet has been money. It has not been easy to do that, right? What I want to talk about is a little bit, and Chris, can you just give me a thumbs up if the slides look good?
I can see
Great.
make first slide.
Great. So I figured that it was important, now that you understand a little bit of how Zebedee is thinking about Bitcoin and money, and how to approach this problem of bringing money into games. I think it's important to highlight the facets of the founding team briefly, so you understand our background. So Chris gave an introduction to himself. So he's ever since 2013 has been working in Bitcoin, and has seen the ups and downs of the many blockchain projects, the tokens, the ICOs, the NFTs, and really Chris leads the R&D parts of the company. So he has all of that background from game development, right? So that's the first part of the tripod. Simon Cowell, our CEO and co-founder, comes from the financial background, financial services, and also crypto exchange background. Most recently, he was the lead of corporate strategy at Bitstamp, and Bitstamp is one of the longest running crypto and Bitcoin exchanges in the world. And then I come from the systems and application development background. So I've built software for the past decade of all kinds, shapes, and sizes for massive enterprise companies like Facebook, Snapchat, and TD Ameritrade, to really tiny, startup little projects that get complete in 2 months. Zebedee is now a team of over 43, I believe. So that may be slightly outdated. And we're growing, quite fast, both as a platform and as a team. Chris touched on this already in his slides, but really what Zebedee does is sort of like these three aspects that are important to highlight. The innovation as it relates to money in games has been completely limited by regulation, right? There isn't a Brazilian real API. You can't use a dollar interface, right? It doesn't exist. That's not a thing. Each of these systems are very separated. You have bank A and bank B, and in order for them to communicate, they have to build systems as well. So it hasn't been this easy. But the gaming industry and gamers and game developers in general already understand that this target demographic already understands the notion of digital points. Every game, as Chris mentioned, has points or coins or rewards or gems or stones or gold, right? And so all that we do is we are a fintech provider for the games industry, and we provide that games developers and gamers the ability to connect real digital value, which is Bitcoin, into their games, into the fabric of your game. So Chris again touched on this. I just wanted to briefly, go over it again. As app developers, we want to worry about building the app and building the user experience for an app. As game developers, we want to create the best game experience, the best game with the best missions and assets, etc. If your focus as an app developer or as a game developer is to solve payment gateway problems, you're completely disregarding what your core proposition is. As app developers, you want to focus on the app, and then you want to use third parties for the services. As game developers, you want to focus on the game, and you want to use integrations, right, with this provider or that provider. So you can think of something along the lines of Stripe. Stripe in the 2010s was one of the big providers for the e-commerce boom, and this was because each mom and pop shop, you could have two people could create a website, and they could have a payment processor inside of that website, and they could sell a product. They didn't have to open bank accounts. They didn't have to create, go through money transmitter licenses. They didn't have to build infrastructure for payments. They used Stripe as a third party. So what Zebedee's trying to do is take all of this complexity away. As a gamer and as a game developer, this is not what you need to be worried about. Let's us worried about that, and then you get to focus on building the experience for your games. So we provide simple integrations that allow any game to put Bitcoin and digital money into the fabric of your game, and we're completely compliant and regulated, right? So we handle that piece for you, and you can use it as you do with any other technology provider. So from the side of the product suite, I do want to highlight that Zebedee is able to, we provide products for both gamers and game developers. So game developers, which is of course the focus of this presentation, for game developers, what we provide is essentially all of the tooling that you would need to power your game with this technology. So you can imagine a robust developer dashboard where you can create your games, you can get your API keys, you can manage transactions, you can create transactions, you can make payments, right? And really you can you go into the documentation portal, you can see guides and integrations, and really it's everything you need right then and there. The Zebedee APIs are entirely, industry standard. We provide RESTful interfaces. If you're a developer and you've used APIs before, this is very standard. And what that means is Zebedee is available wherever HTTP is available, right? And HTTP is virtually available everywhere. There's always HTTP connections and calls and API requests. So anywhere that you can write code, you can virtually speak to Zebedee. And what that means is it could be done on Node.js, it could be done on Unreal engines, it could be done on Unity, it could be done on any sort of backend, Python, Java, Go, really any environment. And Zebedee does provide a set of SDKs. So if you're working on a Node.js backend for your game, you can use the normal HTTP API, but you can also use the Zebedee Node.js SDK, which provides some capabilities, some abstraction to make things easier for you. We have a set of SDKs available on our website as well. And then last but not least, I think what we want to do is provide the tooling that's needed for game developers to get started quickly. So we're constantly working on what we call a game server. It's meant to be a pre-built little package that you can kickstart off with, and it comes with a set of tools and integrations, including Zebedee, that you can deploy to a server, and it comes with most of the things you would need to handle, user transactions, how to integrate with Zebedee, and so forth. So this is on the game developer side. It's really a full stack suite, and we're building a ton of new features this year, from further transaction analytics, transaction reporting, exporting, third-party integrations, brokerage, a lot of stuff, right? And then on the gamer side, playing Bitcoin-powered games requires a wallet, right? You're no longer playing a little game and then it says you have 100 gold and then you maintain that 100 gold in the game, right? Because Bitcoin is this interoperable network of people and of participants, it is, all of the games speak Bitcoin, all of the wallets speak Bitcoin, all of the many virtual worlds speak Bitcoin. So once you win something in a game, you can now take it out of the game. It's a bi-directional flow. Whereas before, an example right now that's very real is if I need V-Bucks inside of Fortnite, right? Everyone must be familiar with Fortnite. If I want V-Bucks, I have to buy those with real, dollars, for example. But I can't sell my V-Bucks in the game and get dollars back into my account. That's not allowed, right? I can't do that. So what Bitcoin does is it turns that unidirectional flow into a bidirectional flow. So games can actually reward players and users with real value. And for that, we have the wallet. So as a gamer, you want to introduce gamers to this environment, we need to simplify and we need to make things familiar. And so that's what the Zebedee mobile wallet aims to be. It's an iOS and Android wallet, and you sign up with your Google login or your Twitter login or your Discord login, and immediately you get instant access to this thriving ecosystem of Bitcoin-powered games. But the wallet is also a wallet, right? It can be used for just about anything that Bitcoin can be used for. It doesn't have to only be games. A neat thing that the wallet does have that I think is important to highlight is, as game developers, you are also building a community. You're building a community of gamers that want to interact with you as the developer, but also with you as the game creator, and you want to push new updates and features based on what the gamers are giving you feedback on, what they're asking for. And so what we have is deep integrations with a certain set of platforms for the wallet, right? So as a game developer, you can install the Zebedee integrations for Discord, for example, into your server. And what that means is by installing that, you have immediately made all of the players and gamers that are part of your Discord server able to send Bitcoin to and from each other by simply texting, right? So by sending a message. So I can send to Chris 500, and I can say, hey, Chris, send Chris 500, right? And I've sent him fractions of a Bitcoin. And this is all possible directly through the interface of Discord. And so we have integrations with Discord, we have integrations with Telegram, and we also have integrations with Steam. As game developers building community, this is a really strong proposition here. Touching on what that actually means, right? What does it actually mean to put Bitcoin in games? What can we do? On the left side, we see on the player side, we see there's brand new experiences, right? Now you have money attached to each and every event. An example is Zebedee. Chris actually, alongside our R&D team, has built a proof of concept game called Zebedee Kart, where it's similar to something like a Mario Kart, where the coins in the actual map that you catch, those coins that you pass by and pick those up, those are actual Bitcoin, right? And so now you're talking about a brand new experience where, as a gamer, I can pick up the coins and I can throw the coins at my opponent to slow them down and then take over, or I can keep the coins because the coin has real value outside of the game. And so, the introduction of real money into games actually creates for all of these new experiences that can be created and incentive structures that can be, created. On the player side as well, you can also do things like player-to-player trade, and you can do rewards, as Chris has been doing for the past 10 years or so. On the audience side, also piggybacking off of the Zebedee Kart extension, in the Zebedee Kart game, if you're on a streaming mode, you can show a QR code on your screen as a streamer, and your audience members, who up until this point have been passive audience members, they just watch, right? With this integration with Zebedee, you can actually let audience members scan a QR code, make a small, tiny payment, even potentially with a message attached to it, and have that trigger in-game events, right? So that can trigger in a Mario Kart, if you're familiar with that, you would have something like the Thunder power-up, which would make everyone in the game slow down. You could have that trigger, right? So in Zebedee Kart, we have something called a God mode gets triggered, right? And so everyone slows down. So you're making your audience members active participants of the experience. You're no longer just passive participants. And so as an audience member, you can also do things that are very similar to what currently exists, which are tipping streamers. You can donate to your favorite players and so forth. On the developer side, however, we are now talking about new gameplay, right? We're talking about adding real value to coins, to add to real assets in the game, have value in the game and outside of the game. So that's really important. And specifically, you can now, developers can now monetize these interactions in game in a real-time basis. Each interaction invokes and includes a transaction, for example. So what we've seen so far is that in the cost per install, the CPI of games that are partnered with us in building on the platform has dramatically been reduced with the addition of Bitcoin. Having the notion of a Bitcoin reward, has driven retention anywhere from 10 to 200%. And what that means is users and gamers are much more willing to come back to your experience and to your game and continue devoting their time to improving their gameplay and playing your game more, because there's the potential for actually receiving value, that has worth, right? That has something. And it is not going to be something where they close their phone and their time was spent. In this case, their time was actually rewarded with real value. So one case study is that I wanted to touch on is Viker Games. So Viker Games is a UK-based hyper-casual mobile games studio, and they focus on iOS and Android mobile games. So trivia questions, ballpoints, and in this case, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire as well. So we actually onboarded Viker in late August, and on the third week of September of last year, they had already had a game live in the App Store. So you're talking about roughly 3 to 3.5, 4 weeks from initial engagement to implementation, integration, and release to the App Store. That's a very fast iteration cycle. So, for games that want to differentiate themselves, for games that want to be creative and innovative, integrating with Zebedee is a smooth process. This is not something that you'll require months and months of development just to integrate a tiny Bitcoin reward into your game, for example. Viker currently has 7 games in the platform, and they plan to reach, upwards of double digits, maybe 15, by the end of this year, entirely being played in the platform. I think what's exciting is we keep talking about the notion of real value that has value outside of the game, but it may sometimes be hard to understand and to visualize what that looks like. So we put together these a couple, this is just a handful of them. We get hundreds, maybe thousands of these, where folks that have been playing our games, that have been playing games that are powered by Zebedee, that have been playing Bitcoin-powered games in general, have been able to earn significant amounts of money, right? And you can imagine with all of the events and tournaments that Zebedee and other sponsors put together, folks are earning hundreds of thousands of Satoshis, which, in Brazilian reais and in US dollars could be equate to something like hundreds of dollars, right? And this is something that folks are playing in their own time, and in the case of a few of them in the middle one here, where Renan Oliveira is saying that he has paid, his bills, Zebedee actually has an integration with the Counter-Strike Global Offensive CSGO game. And this is a game that he already played, right? So this is a game that he already played with his friends online, and instead of now just spending hours playing the game and all that he gets is fun and entertainment, now he gets fun, entertainment, and also value that he put into the game for improving his skill set and for playing the game. That value he was able to pay rent with, right? On the left side, they were able to pay for groceries, right? And these are real life impact of the fact that we're using real money in the games and not just 100 gold or 100 points or 100 jams, right? We're using 100 fractions of Bitcoin. So it's really impactful what we've seen so far of this integration. So as I was talking earlier, Zebedee is incredibly easy to integrate. You simply apply for API access. We'll be able to get that through to you with a little checks there, and you connect your game server to our API through API keys, and then you trigger events, right? So if the user does X, trigger this. If the user does Y, trigger that. And you can make payments, transactions, requests, QR codes, the entire thing. And the developer dashboard is really for measuring, right? How is my game doing? Is it improving? How are we making it work? So you can think of detailed analytics. You can think of, you have accounts and wallets per game, so you can segregate your funds. So if you're a game studio and you have multiple games, you want to have different wallets for each of the games. Really a general purpose developer dashboard for measuring how the game is performing and what's happening in your economy. As opposed to a lot of banks and payment processors, which have fees and fees on top of fees, and the platform fee and the service fee and the Stripe fee and et cetera, and the bank fee, our fee structure is very simple. Zebedee charges 1%, right, on all in-game transactions. And what that means is we provide you access to the APIs and the game servers and the developer dashboards. We're the regulatory compliance party, right? We can take care of regulation. We make sure that we're staying true to what's needed in each jurisdiction, and then provide you the ins and outs of that capability. Zebedee also provides the capability for developers to earn revenue from these transactions as well. So if you would like to add a transaction fee to your transactions, you can do so. A lot of developers at the moment are setting that to 0 because they don't yet want to play that. They want to use Bitcoin for rewards, or they want to use Bitcoins for other things. But you can monetize each and every one of those transactions in a custom way. And you say, I want to take a 2% cut here. So even the developer taking a cut plus the Zebedee fee is still tiny compared to current traditional finance, right? We're talking, 10 basis points or less. And so just to finish off, I think what's exciting is that for the first time, we have data that represents money. So again, we can in this virtual world that we are in right now, we can talk, we can see each other, we can voice, audio, you can send messages. All of this is possible, but there's absolutely no way that I can send money across. One reason is the geographical location differences, right? Your money in a country is different than the money in another country. Bitcoin is a global money, so we don't need to deal with that. But it is just inherently better technology. The cheapest thing you can do in traditional finance and credit cards is around, make an in-app purchase for 60 or 70 cents on the dollar. When it hits your account, that actually is around $1 because of fees, right? So you can't make transactions smaller than that. In the Zebedee ecosystem and in Bitcoin, you can make transactions which are 1 Satoshi. A Satoshi is a unit of Bitcoin, and that is equal to 1/100th of 1 cent. So we're talking minuscule transactions. So it is just inherently better and more scalable technology for an industry like gaming. So you can think of things like streaming payments. You can think of things like coins in games having actual value. You can think of audience participation. So all of this is possible with the Zebedee ecosystem of tools. So I'm going to pass this on to Chris, and he will be able to walk us through some game examples.
Want to transfer the screen sharing to me?
Yes, I need to do that. How does one do that?
On screen share, there's like a little arrow, and you click, and it has advanced sharing options. Comes up. Actually, maybe I can do it. I think I can do it anyway.
Okay, great.
Can you see it?
Yes, we're good.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly go over this because I want to save some time for Q&A. And if you have any questions, please ask them like in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end. And you might notice behind me, it's probably a little bit small, but I've just put a video that loops just showing some of the game integrations that I'm going to talk about here. But yeah, the Zebedee SDK in games. So I'm just going to show like how I used our SDK just to add Bitcoin into some games. One game you'll know, a couple of games you'll know, and some games are kind of sample games that we've made. Okay. There we go. Yeah. So I use 2 things. I use the Zebedee API. So that's our API. That is a wrapper for the Lightning Network. So the Lightning Network is Bitcoin. It's just like a layer 2 solution to Bitcoin, which makes it work in gaming. It just makes it scalable and cheap to use. And yeah, I just use the REST API for this. So that works in any language, JavaScript, C#, etc. I also use a protocol called LNURL, which you don't have to worry about too much. This is just basically a way to show a QR code that any Lightning wallet can scan to kind of pay or to withdraw. But we also have something else, which is probably a bit more interesting for game devs, called a gamer tag, which I'll get onto. But yeah, so one example I want to start off with is Bomberman. So this was like a challenge we had for a hackathon we did in the States. So there were three things I had to do. I had to take an existing game, I had to find a simple open source implementation of the game, and I had to show how easily it is to add Bitcoin to it via the Zebedee API. So I chose Bomberman. It's a game that everybody knows and loves, and there's a bunch of simple open source implementations. Yep, so I think I found it's called Bomberman. Oh, it's called actually HTML5 Bomber Girl, it was called. So I was just on GitHub. I just did a quick Google search, but it's all in JavaScript, pretty easy to read and understand. So all I had to do was to basically change some of the sprites to a Bitcoin image. And yeah, the task I wanted to do was to add a Bitcoin paywall. So people would basically have to pay some Bitcoin to play the game. And then the second task was to add a Bitcoin reward. And so once people exploded the blocks, they would find a Bitcoin that would add to their total Bitcoin, and then they could withdraw the Bitcoin. And this video now is looping just to show that in action. So the tools I got the Zebedee wallet that allows the user to pay and withdraw. It's important to point out that because Bitcoin is an open network, you can use any Bitcoin Lightning wallet from any company pretty much, but we just use our own because it's made for gamers. So it's just a bit more gamer friendly. I use the developer dashboard, which you can find on our website. So that basically just gave me an API key. It let me set up a game, Bomberman, let me add some Bitcoin to the game, and yeah, gave me an API key to use the API, and I used the REST API. So this is how easy it was. The first thing to do to make the paywall is I just had to use a basic HTTP request in JavaScript where I would have an API key. I would call our URL, which is like Zebedee API charge. So charge is basically something you pay. It's like you pay the charge to enter. And that returned a charge, which I would turn into a QR code that the user would scan to pay to play. And that's the result. So yeah, it's basically one function there that gave a QR code that the user could use their Zebedee wallet to scan, and that would basically pay and they could play the game. Again, I'll show this in the video as well afterwards in a larger format. Yeah, the next one was just, okay, so the user has played, there's Bitcoin in the game now. How can the player actually earn Bitcoin? So when they would basically blow up the blocks, a Bitcoin would appear and they would collect that and withdraw. And in Bitcoin, we actually have the term sats. So you have a dollar and you have cents, or a pound and pennies. In Bitcoin, you have Bitcoin and sats. A sats is just a small amount of Bitcoin. So each time they got a coin, they earned 10 sats, and there was a button to withdraw. Again, it was one more function, pretty much exact same code as the paywall function, but instead of making a charge, we make a withdrawal request. I enter the amount that I want the user to withdraw in Bitcoin. It gives me back a data that I encode into a QR code, and the user scans that with their Zebedee wallet, and the Bitcoin they've earned is sent directly to them. And my video now is showing that. Again, I'll show the video in larger format at the end. Yes, that's how the whole point of this was, for a hackathon, just to show how easy it is to get an existing game, use our API, make two functions, and you've basically got a game that lets you pay to play with Bitcoin and lets the players earn. So really, really simple. Another example game we made is Zebedee Carts. This is a bit more involved game, and it's behind me now. So the tasks were to make a family-friendly multiplayer game. What if we can turn Mario coins into Bitcoin? So, you know, the coins you actually collect in Mario Kart, what if they're actually Bitcoin? And, you know, we wanted a game to do for esports competition. So during lockdown, we did a bunch of esports competitions where all our community came on board and they raced and for Bitcoin prizes. So Mario Kart clone was a perfect choice for that. So we made Zebedee Kart. And there's two things in this game. Well, there's a lot of things, but there's two basic things. One is you can pay to join a race. So you can pay to enter competition. Maybe you pay a small amount, like $1 in Bitcoin, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. And then at the end, you would withdraw based on your position and how many coins you collected. So this is basically how easy it was. So I've got some screens here showing a user, they are making a race. So a user would host a game, host a race. They would say the name of the race, how many players can enter the race, and they would also set a fee to enter the race. And then they would pay that. A user would pay that fee to enter the race, and they would be in the waiting room. And at the bottom right, we got a tiny amount of code showing in Unity how I just basically made the pay to enter feature. Really simple. Yet again, one smaller function just to add that. And then at the end of the race, when they've collected the coins and they've finished first, they get so all the players would say pay $1 to enter the race. That means if there's 10 players, the race has $10. And the person who comes first in the race would maybe get like $7. And then the person comes second gets like $3. And the person who came third gets $2, and it gets less and less and less. Also, there's a bonus for collecting the coins. Again, just to make it allow the user to withdraw, it's one small function in Unity which calls an API. That's how simple it is. There's nothing, you don't have to run a Bitcoin node, you don't have to get permission, you don't have to do this. You basically call a function, it makes a QR code that people can scan. And we can see in the Zebedee wallet, there's a screenshot there saying that Zebedee Cart paid you, 38 sats, 862 sats. So this is like really simple way to add it. And Zebedee Cart is one of the community's favorite games, and we actually have some professional Zebedee Cart racers who I think one player at the tournament, we had a tournament for half a Bitcoin, which they won, which was pretty exciting. And so something else I want to touch on is a gamertag API. So I mentioned before how you can make a paywall where you make a QR code that people scan, and then when you withdraw, you make another QR code that people scan to withdraw to get the Bitcoin. That's kind of great, but QR codes aren't the best experience. So at Zebedee, we have something called a gamertag API, and this allows us to stream payments. And gamertag API is important for two use cases. One is on mobile, and one is in VR. And the reason why, when you're playing a mobile game, you don't want to kind of have, you can't scan a QR code because the game is on mobile, and you can't scan the game with the phone because the phone you're holding. So at Zebedee, when you download the wallet, you get a gamertag, which is like a kind of your kind of name, I suppose, and it lets you send Bitcoin to the name. So as a game developer, you can make a game, the user would enter their Zebedee gamertag, and every time you want to send them Bitcoin, you can just send them Bitcoin to the gamertag. They don't have to leave the game. So we can stream payments there. And likewise in Beat Saber in VR, you can't really scan a QR code in VR because the QR code is like displayed in the VR, and you just can't do it. So again, you would enter your gamertag into the VR game, and as you play the game, the Bitcoin could be streamed to it. So one example by Viker is Balls King. You play the game, you earn some Bitcoin, and then when you want to cash out, you enter your gamertag, you press redeem, and the sats are just sent without you having to leave the app. Because if the gamer has to leave the game, it's friction. If he's left the game, they might think, oh well, I'm going to finish for today. But it kind of keeps them in the game, which is important. Yeah, and another example, Beat Saber, is this one is it's not public. It's just a kind of experiment I did myself because I have a lot of friends who like Beat Saber, and my wife likes Beat Saber. But I wanted just to show how it's possible to add Bitcoin into Beat Saber. So I have a video on that as well. But you enter your gamertag, put on the headset, or you can kind of enter it in VR, with like the virtual keyboard, and then as you hit the blocks, each block can send you a penny, and it can just stream Bitcoin to you. And this was a tech demo, but we can kind of imagine a case where a game who wants to make a VR game, they could do some competition. Maybe two people in Beat Saber have a competition, you know, they both pay to enter, and the person who wins gets most of the sats. You know, like more accurate they are, the more sats. If they miss a block, they don't get sats, so they lose out again. It could be sponsored by ad revenue, etc., or you know, very exciting stuff. And just going to, yeah, and here's the gamer tag API just to kind of show how that works. Very, very simple, you know, very simple. Just send 1,000 to Chris, that simple. I'm just going to show the video just a bit longer here, just and then we can finish, just so
Yeah,
people.
Chris, I was going to say, let's show the video, and then there's already a question that I want to make sure we touch on.
So this is the Bomberman. You can see it made a QR code. I scan it with my Zebedee wallet to pay, and the QR code is paid. Now I can play Bomberman, and she goes around, or Bomber Girl, and drops bombs until a Bitcoin is found. There we go, found a Bitcoin. See here, the sats are increased. We've got 20 sats, and I'm going to withdraw, scan it with my Zebedee wallet on the right, and I've got the 20 sats there. Very simple. And you can see in the wallet, I've got Bitcoin. That's actual Bitcoin, which I can use outside of the game. Again, this is me making a pay-to-play game in Zebedee Cart, where all the players have to pay a certain amount to enter. They scan the QR code, checkbox. They race around. They're collecting the coins. Yep, and when they finish, it calculates how much they've won, and in this instance, it's actually sent to the gamer tag. So I actually have streaming in Zebedee Cart. You can see in the wallet, just sent straight there. This is another mobile game, which I'll just skip past. And this is a Beat Saber, which I'll show this in action, where I enter my gamer tag, which is Mandelduck. I actually made a Beat Saber mod for this, and as I'm hitting it, we can see the coins are dropping here. So these are sats being sent to my wallet, and it's just a great, I think it's just really, really cool that in VR, which is the virtual world, you're actually earning virtual money. Kind of feels like the future, but the future is here. And this is the Bulls King game, just to finish with. Popular game you can download now, and once the players earn some sats, see we've got a bunch of sats at the top here. They enter their gamer tag, and they only have to enter it once, and after that it'll stream to them. Yeah, it's just streamed to them there. Perfect. They didn't have to leave the game. Yeah, so I'll just finish there, and yeah, I'll probably just
yeah, this is
slide is just that's all, folks. So happy to take questions. So
nice. I did want to touch on a question that has been asked in the Q&A from Andre Cruz, who says, with Zebedee, can we have a double currency with country currency and crypto at the same time? So it seems like you're asking from a developer side as well as a gamer side. Zebedee is actively integrating with on and off ramp providers. So these are the folks that allow us to do your country currency to Bitcoin and back. We're actually happy to say that we have an integration with a Brazilian exchange coming very soon. What that means is for the Brazilian market, you'll be able to use Pix to the Pix network for banking to send your payments from your bank account to Zebedee's platform or wallet, and from Zebedee's wallet from Bitcoin back to your bank account, with a few clicks of a button. So that's very exciting, and we're also integrating with other non-Brazilian specific exchanges, which will cover the rest of, hopefully the rest of the major countries in the world. The goal is to make it very seamless for users to go from Bitcoin to their local currency, but the Zebedee wallet won't hold both values. Like, you won't have a Brazilian real value and a Bitcoin value. You will have a Bitcoin balance, but you can immediately and very easily, send it back to your bank account where it could become Brazilian reais. So that will be the experience, right? For an end user gamer, you'll just have the wallet, you scan a QR code, you pay, and if you need to have more or less funds, you can interact with your bank directly from the app. And this is also true for the developer dashboard. So developers that made money through a game, or developers that need to fund a game, can very quickly click a few buttons and transfer the funds over to the wallet. Awesome. Thank you. let's see. Are there any other questions?
I saw a question on the chat saying, do you just work with Bitcoin? So a similar question, I suppose, but maybe they're asking if we work with other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah. Do you want to take that, Chris? I can.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I'll let you
yeah,
take it.
I'll go for it. Basically, the way we see it, FIFO, right? So the way we see is that Bitcoin is the most, widely understood, regulated, and dispersed in the world currency in the world. So, for example, any country in the world now has an exchange, and that exchange definitely covers Bitcoin. So you can go from Bitcoin to a local currency in virtually every country in the world. Bitcoin is the most liquid asset. It is the most understood. It is the most known to regulatory bodies, governments, and institutions that need to be aware of money as it relates to it. So we really think of Bitcoin as the next step in money. It's a new form of money. It is something that is not controlled by just one party, right, or one person or one group of people. So it's really interesting for us, and specifically, it's not geographically bound. So in Brazil, you have Brazilian reais. In the United States, you have U.S. dollars. In the UK, you have the British pound, and in parts of Europe, you have the euro, but you also have other currencies. And everywhere you go, you have to exchange your currency. You go from Brazil to the U.S., you have to trade your Brazilian reais for US dollars, right? So the beauty of Bitcoin is that it is Bitcoin everywhere in the world. It doesn't matter if you're a Bitcoin in the United States or in Brazil or wherever. It is still just Bitcoin, right? So for us, we focus on Bitcoin as the payment solution. We are going to be providing other solutions around things that game developers want. So around the notion of trading from Bitcoin to your local currency, as I mentioned. But as it relates to other cryptocurrencies at the moment, we're not integrating them, and we're really focusing on Bitcoin as the payments piece here.
I would also like to add, because I've been in the space since 2013, like Bitcoin from a tech stack is the only really stable option out there at the moment. A lot of other currencies, for example, Ethereum, which is kind of experimental and cool, but they're still transitioning to launch to Ethereum 2, and it's not quite stable yet. So, but Bitcoin is all about stability. And if you want to build a business, you want to make sure you build it on something that is kind of has stability first rather than experimentation. So that's kind of why I chose Bitcoin personally, but why at Zebedee at the moment, Bitcoin makes the most sense. Not to say in the future that something could be stable and useful that we might use, but at the moment, Bitcoin is the only game in town, really.
Exactly. Do we have any other questions? Anything that we haven't touched on that folks would like us to, relating to the APIs, SDKs, the games that Chris showed? We're happy to answer them here. We're also happy to answer them in asynchronously in the future. So you can reach out to us at zebedee.io. We're also on Twitter, so you can reach out to us at Twitter at Zebedee.io as well. Chris and I are Chris at Zebedee.io and Andre at Zebedee.io for emails. Please, if you have questions, you want to engage, if you want to sign up for the developer dashboard, if you want to test, if you want to get creative, if you want to innovate and really bring something new to your game and to your studio, please get in touch, and we'd be happy to help you integrate and help you, see what the capabilities are of our services and our platform. Anything else you want to touch on, Chris?
No, I'll just say, if you just want to chat, we have a Discord where I like to chat with game devs about ideas they might have or just kind of help them out. So yeah, definitely get in touch. That's part of my role at Zebedee, is to talk to game devs and kind of help them out with ideas and concepts they might have.
Awesome. Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure. We hope to come back soon with more updates and more products and more solutions for gamers and game developers.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Take care.